You wake up already exhausted. Not because you did too much, but because your mind never stopped. Emails, news, deadlines, other people's opinions. Your phone starts buzzing before you even open your eyes. You feel behind before the day even begins. But what if the problem isn't your schedule? What if the real enemy is how you think? The Stoics believed peace isn't something you find. It's something you choose, not by doing more, but by needing less. You don't need a new app, a new habit, or a new vacation. You need to stop being at war with things you can't control and start mastering the only thing that's ever truly yours, your mind. 1. Control what you can. Let go of the rest. We live in a world addicted to control. Control over time, control over people, control over outcomes. But the harder we try to control everything, the more we lose control of ourselves. The Stoics saw this clearly. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not." It sounds simple, but this one sentence can radically shift your life. Let's break it down. You can't control the weather. You can't control traffic. You can't control what people think about you. You can't control your past. You can't control your genetics. So why spend energy on them? Now, what can you control? You can control how you respond to stress. You can control what you say. You can control where you place your attention. You can control your values. And above all, you can control your mindset. That's the heart of Stoic thinking. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, two things happen. First, you feel lighter. Stress, anxiety, frustration, they all lose their grip because they feed on resistance. And you're no longer resisting what you can't change. Second, you reclaim your power. All that wasted energy, it now becomes focus. You start putting your time into what actually matters. Your thoughts, your habits, your character. Imagine this. You're stuck in traffic. You're late. You start getting angry, anxious, maybe even cursing the world. Now pause. Ask yourself, is this under my control? No. So what's the point of the anger? It doesn't make traffic move faster. It just ruins your mood. It steals your peace. But if you accept the moment, breathe, maybe use that time to reflect or listen to something meaningful, then you've already won. Not over traffic, but over yourself. That's Stoicism in action. Think of life like a game of cards. You don't choose the hand you're dealt, but you choose how you play it. The Stoics would say, play your role well. If you're a parent, be a wise one. If you're a leader, be a fair one. If you're struggling, be a resilient one. You don't need the perfect situation to act with virtue. You just need to remember, your response is always your choice. Here's something practical you can try starting today. Whenever you feel tension, pause and ask, is this within my control? If yes, what can I do now? Calmly? If no, what can I let go of? This simple check-in, done consistently, changes your mental wiring. You stop being reactive. You start being grounded. This is not detachment in the cold sense. This is clarity. You're not ignoring life. You're just not enslaved by it. You're not numb. You're aware. And in that awareness, there's peace. 2. The trap of expectations. Most people aren't unhappy because of what actually happened. They're unhappy because it didn't happen the way they expected. You expected that person to understand you. You expected that job to fulfill you. You expected that plan to go perfectly. And when it didn't, you felt frustrated, disappointed, maybe even bitter. But here's the truth. The more expectations you carry, the more suffering you create. Expectations are invisible contracts, ones the world never agreed to sign. The Stoics knew this well. They taught that suffering is often self-created, born from the gap between reality and our imagined version of it. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." That means you're not upset about what is. You're upset because it's not what you thought it should be. Here's a hard truth. Life doesn't owe you anything. Not fairness, not comfort, not convenience. The world turns, with or without your preferences. When you expect it to match your ideal, and it doesn't, you create stress. Now let's be clear. This doesn't mean you can't have goals or hopes. It means you stay grounded in reality while holding your hopes lightly. You focus on effort, not outcome. You control your actions, not the applause. Let's say you start a business, and it fails. The Stoic doesn't panic. He asks, did I act with integrity? Did I do my best with what I had? If yes, then failure isn't a crisis. It's a lesson, and that mindset protects your peace. The same applies to relationships. You can't control how people treat you. You can only control how you respond. If someone disrespects you, you set boundaries, but you don't carry hatred. If someone lets you down, you adjust your trust, but you don't drown in resentment. That's emotional discipline. That's stoicism. Here's the danger of unchecked expectations. They turn everything into a transaction. You help someone, and secretly expect them to help you back. You work hard, and expect instant recognition. You love, and expect love in the same form. But life doesn't always give you symmetry. If your peace depends on reciprocity, you'll always be one disappointment away from collapse. The Stoic way is different. It says, act rightly, because it's right, not because of what you'll get. Do good because it reflects who you are, not because you expect a reward. That's real freedom. Now let's talk about internal expectations. The ones you place on yourself. You might think you need to be perfect, to always have it together, to never fail. But those expectations are heavy and unrealistic. You're not a machine. You're human. You will fall short sometimes. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress, guided by virtue. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history, wrote in his private journal, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, today I will meet people who are selfish, ignorant, rude, and arrogant, but I can't let that stop me from being honest, humble, patient, and kind, because that is who I choose to be. That's preparation, not just expectation. He expected resistance, but committed to virtue anyway. That's strength. Imagine how different your day would feel if, instead of expecting everyone to behave, you simply prepared yourself to stay calm regardless. Imagine the peace that would follow if you let go of how things should be, and focused on how you can be, no matter what. Stoicism doesn't kill ambition. It cleans it. It strips away the ego, the entitlement, the fantasy. It replaces them with resilience, purpose, and focus. You can still pursue great things. But now, you're not fragile when they don't go exactly as planned. Here's something you can try. For one day, drop every mental should. He should reply. The meeting should go smoothly. They should understand. Instead, accept what is, and respond with calm strength. Watch how much lighter your day becomes. Peace is not found in everything going your way. Peace is found in your ability to stay centered when it doesn't. 3. Focus only on what matters. Mental minimalism in practice. Your brain wasn't designed to handle everything. It was designed to handle what matters. But in a world that rewards noise, speed, and distraction, we've confused busyness with purpose. The result? Mental exhaustion, emotional burnout, a constant feeling that we're doing a lot, but going nowhere. The Stoics had a radical solution. Not more, not better, but less. They believed peace comes not from adding things, but from removing what's unnecessary. Not from achieving more, but from needing less. Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Why? Because choosing what truly matters often looks strange to people chasing everything. Let's go deeper. Think about your day. How many things do you do because they're essential? And how many because they're expected? You check your phone first thing in the morning. Not because it's useful, but because your brain has been trained to crave noise. You say yes to meetings, calls, invites, not because they align with your values, but because saying no feels uncomfortable. You overthink, overwork, overcommit, and underlive. The Stoics would say, cut the noise. Marcus Aurelius wrote, ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? That's minimalism for the mind. Mental minimalism is not about having no thoughts. It's about having fewer and better ones. Here's one powerful idea. Not all information is worth knowing. You don't need to have an opinion about everything. You don't need to follow every headline. You don't need to engage in every argument. The modern world tempts you to be constantly updated. The Stoic reminds you, being informed is not the same as being wise. Imagine this. Someone insults you online. You feel the urge to clap back, to defend yourself, but then you pause, ask, is this essential? Most likely, no. So you move on. That's clarity. That's freedom. Freedom is not the absence of responsibility. It's the presence of focus. You don't need to do more. You need to do what matters. With less noise, less guilt, and more intention. Here's a counterintuitive truth. Simplicity is a superpower. In business, in health, in relationships, those who know what to ignore often win more than those who know everything. You don't get ahead by doing everything. You get ahead by doing the right things. Consistently. Here's a small Stoic practice. At the start of your day, write down the top 3 things that matter most today. Not the things that make you look productive. The things that actually move your life forward. Do those, and cut everything else. Distraction is a decision. Every time you choose to open that app, check that message, or dive into that drama, you're trading your peace for stimulation. You have to ask, is that a good trade? Most people never make that trade consciously. They just drift. The Stoics didn't drift. They lived on purpose. They believed that your attention is your most sacred asset. Whatever you give your attention to, that becomes your reality. Want a simpler, calmer life? Give your attention to fewer things, higher things. Instead of chasing status, focus on character. Instead of collecting opinions, build principles. Instead of trying to win arguments, live your truth so clearly you don't need to explain it. And remember, peace doesn't come from getting more done. Peace comes from knowing what doesn't need to be done at all. Here's another idea to sit with. What you say no to defines you more than what you say yes to. The world will keep throwing options, offers, opportunities. If you don't filter, you drown. Mental clarity is not a luxury. It's a requirement if you want to live well and die with few regrets. 4. Detachment is power. Letting go without losing yourself. Detachment is often misunderstood. People think it means becoming cold, indifferent, or emotionally numb, but that's not what the Stoics taught. Detachment is not about cutting yourself off from life. It's about not being owned by it. Think about the things you cling to. Your job, your possessions, your relationships, your image. None of these are inherently bad. But when you hold onto them so tightly that losing them would destroy you, that's where the problem lies. Seneca said, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. In other words, it's not about what you have. It's about how much you need what you have. The Stoics weren't against wealth, love, or success. They were against being enslaved by them. Here's the difference. When you're attached to something, you make it your source of happiness. It becomes your anchor, and anchors weigh you down. But when you detach, you no longer rely on external circumstances for your peace. You can still enjoy life, still love, still work, but without the constant fear of losing it all. Now, let's talk about a real-world example. Imagine you've worked for years to build your dream career. You've sacrificed time, energy, and relationships to get there. One day, you get the news. You're being laid off. Most people would panic, feel worthless, or spiral into depression. But a Stoic? They would pause, they'd breathe, and they would remember. I am not my job. The role doesn't define them. It's something they do, not who they are. And they'd ask, what can I control in this moment? They wouldn't let external circumstances dictate their emotional state. Detachment gives you this power. It makes you resilient. It makes you unshakable. Because when you're not dependent on external things to stay stable, nothing can really throw you off course. But let's be clear, detachment isn't about rejecting life. It's about choosing your attachment wisely. You don't need to give up love. You just need to love without needing it. You don't need to give up ambition. You just need to be ambitious without the desperation to prove something. You don't need to give up comfort. You just need to be comfortable with discomfort when it arises. The Stoics were masters of this balance. They enjoyed what life offered, but they didn't need anything. They could walk away from wealth, fame, or relationships, because their happiness was internal. It wasn't tied to what they had. When you stop needing, you gain freedom. So, how can you practice detachment in your life? Start by examining your attachments. What are the things that, deep down, you believe you can't live without? It could be a person, a place, a job, or even your sense of being right. Ask yourself, what would happen if I let this go? Not that you need to let go of everything, but do you have the courage to lose it and still be whole? For example, think about your phone. It's an essential tool, but are you attached to it? Do you check it first thing in the morning, before you even check in with yourself? Try this experiment. For 1 hour, completely disconnect. No phone, no social media, no messages. How does it feel? At first, you may feel anxiety, but as time passes, you'll realize you didn't lose anything important. In fact, you've gained time and mental clarity. Letting go of attachments doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean giving up on life. It means choosing what you attach to, and making peace with the idea that life can change at any moment. That's where true freedom lies. When you can let go, and still stand strong, nothing can take away your peace. 5. Stillness is strength. Finding peace in chaos. In today's world, stillness feels like a luxury. We're bombarded by noise, deadlines, demands, and distractions. We're taught that to succeed, we must move quickly, react instantly, and never slow down. Yet, the Stoics saw things differently. They understood that true strength doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing less with greater focus. Stillness is power. In stillness, we reconnect with our true selves, our purpose, and our inner peace. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." For him, stillness wasn't just an absence of action. It was a presence of mind, a return to clarity amid chaos. Think about it. When everything is spinning out of control, the most powerful thing you can do is stop, pause, breathe. In that moment of stillness, you regain your power, you stop reacting, and you start responding with intention. In the midst of stress, there's often a moment of choice, a brief window where you can decide how to react. Most people miss it, because they're caught up in the rush. But the Stoics knew that if you can seize that moment of stillness, you'll find the clarity needed to make better decisions. Stillness is not about withdrawal. It's about creating space between the stimulus and your reaction. It's about practicing awareness. The more you can create that space, the more control you have over your responses. You stop being a victim to your emotions and start being the master of your mind. Here's a simple but powerful Stoic practice. The evening reflection. At the end of your day, take 10 minutes to sit in silence. Reflect on your actions, thoughts, and reactions. What went well? What could you have done better? And importantly, where did you let your emotions take over? By regularly practicing this, you slowly train yourself to observe your thoughts and behaviors without judgment, without rush, and ultimately, without stress. Another powerful way to cultivate stillness is through mindful breathing. This is a tool you can use in any moment, anywhere. When you're overwhelmed, anxious, or angry, simply take a deep breath. Count to 4 as you inhale. Hold for 4, exhale for 4, repeat for a minute. It sounds simple, but it can be profoundly effective. This practice brings you back to the present, calms your nervous system, and centers your mind. Remember, stillness doesn't mean you're inactive. It means you're present. You're not rushing through life, but fully experiencing it. Stillness gives you the mental space to make better choices, to see things clearly, and to respond from a place of strength, not reaction. The Stoics believed that peace was not a destination, but a choice. Every day, you choose how you respond to life's challenges. And in that choice, you can find an unshakable peace that no external circumstance can touch. Here's the key takeaway. Your life is shaped by the thoughts you allow to dominate your mind. If you fill your mind with chaos, worry, and constant distraction, that's the life you'll experience. But if you make space for stillness, clarity, and self-awareness, you'll find a deep peace that remains untouched by the storm outside. In the end, peace isn't something that happens to you. It's something you create. You create it by being intentional with your thoughts, by being deliberate with your actions, and by embracing the stillness that is always available to you, even in the midst of chaos. So, the next time life feels overwhelming, remember, you don't need to do more. You just need to stop. Find your center, take a breath, and in that moment, you'll discover the true strength that comes from stillness. In a world that constantly demands more, the Stoics show us that the key to peace isn't in achieving more, but in needing less. It's in letting go of control, releasing our expectations, simplifying our thoughts, and embracing the stillness within. By practicing Stoic principles, you can find peace in the chaos. You can choose to respond, not react. You can cultivate strength through stillness. Thank you for watching. If this video has resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on the power of stillness in your own life. Don't forget to subscribe for more content on living a life of purpose, peace, and inner strength.